There is a kind of destruction that does not roar, does not bleed, does not shatter glass or raise dust. It is a destruction that whispers. It waits. And when it moves, it does not announce itself with thunder. It corrodes in silence, like water carving stone. This is the kind of destruction that Niccolo Machiavelli understood best. Not the destruction of armies clashing, nor of blades crossing in the open square, but the destruction that comes from stillness, from composure, from the refusal to be baited into a war you do not need to fight. Real strength does not reveal itself in the explosion of anger. Real strength is in control, the ability to stand unmoved while your enemy burns themselves out trying to ignite you. Fairness is a leash, mercy is a trap, hesitation is suicide. But silence? Silence is a blade no one sees until it cuts. Picture it, someone insults you. Not once, not casually, but deliberately, in front of others, sharp and personal, designed to provoke. Most people react. They snap back, they defend themselves, they spit words like arrows. They think they are preserving dignity, but in truth, they are entering the arena on terms they did not choose. But the Machiavellian mind does something different. It does nothing. You do not flinch. You do not snarl. You do not give them the satisfaction of a reaction. And in that stillness, the game turns. Because the genius of the strategy lies not in your silence, but in what your silence forces them to reveal. They expected fire. They expected rage. They expected your mask to crack. But when you give them nothing, they are left wrestling with their own desperation. And desperation is ugly when exposed to the light. The crowd begins to see it, their obsession, their instability, their hunger for your reaction. The more they shout, the smaller they become. The more you remain calm, the taller you stand without moving an inch. Ask yourself, who looks weaker? The one who endures in silence? Or the one flailing, bleeding themselves out in public just to be heard? That is the first layer of Machiavellian power. Stillness as dominance, not weakness, not passivity. But composure so absolute it bends the narrative around you. Stillness is not the absence of action. It is action sharpened into its purest form. When the world expects rage, you offer calm. When they anticipate argument, you offer silence. And silence is deafening to the insecure. Your opponent begins to second-guess themselves. They thought they could control the battlefield by pulling you into a duel of words, of temper, of chaos. But when you do not engage, they lose the only weapon they had. You don't just resist their attack, you redefine it. Their attempt to humiliate you becomes their self-exposure. Their attempt to provoke you becomes their public unraveling. They dig their own grave, and you don't even lift a finger. But stillness is only the first blade. The second is withdrawal. Withdrawal is subtraction as a weapon. You stop feeding them the oxygen they crave, your attention, your presence, your energy. No statements, no speeches, no dramatics, just absence. Absence is not emptiness, absence is weight. Absence is haunting. When you withdraw, you rob them of their stage. They shout into a vacuum. They scream into an empty room. And the more they scream, the more foolish they look. Ask yourself, what is more devastating than watching an enemy drown in their own noise? They chase you, they poke, they escalate. But with each attempt, their desperation grows more obvious. They become obsessed, and obsession is the mark of the weak. This is how Machiavelli described destruction, not in confrontation, but in irrelevance. The more they reach for you, the more your silence reminds everyone that they are not your equal. They are not your rival. They are simply desperate. Understand this truth. Most people don't attack you because they are strong. They attack because they are weak. Their insults, their gossip, their passive aggression, none of it is about you. It is about them. Their insecurity, their hunger for validation, their emptiness screaming to be filled by your reaction. And when you refuse, when you do not give them the fire they seek, they starve. Starvation exposes the hollowness they tried to hide. It shows the world that their power was never real. It was borrowed. Borrowed from your attention, from your defense, from your reaction. Take that away, and their entire performance collapses. This is why Machiavelli's strategy works not just as defense but as attack. You are not avoiding conflict. You are weaponizing their own need for it. Think of the workplace. A colleague undermines you in front of others. They lace their words with poison, designed to make you look incompetent. The average person rushes to defend. They explain, justify, argue. But every word feeds the story. Instead, you say nothing. You remain steady. And then you excel. You deliver results with precision. You show competence without announcement. You contradict their accusations not with speeches but with undeniable performance. Slowly, the audience begins to see the contrast. They hear your accuser's words, but they see your actions. And action beats accusation every time. The more your enemy talks, the more they expose their lies. The more you achieve, the more their words decay. And then the whisper turns back on them. If he is incompetent, why does he succeed? If she is arrogant, why is she respected? The audience begins to doubt not you but them. And doubt is a poison that erodes their credibility until nothing is left. This is the art of Machiavellian withdrawal. You do not just subtract yourself from their drama. You contrast it with your excellence. You show the world that what they say about you does not match the reality of who you are. And in that contrast, the truth bleeds out. Let me tell you a secret. The most devastating form of power is not to defeat your enemy. It is to make them irrelevant. Relevance is life, relevance is influence. And when you deny them that, you destroy them more completely than any argument ever could. This is the essence of Machiavellian destruction. You do not fight their war. You do not swing at their shadows. You build. You rise. You become untouchable. And in doing so, you turn their existence into background noise. Ask yourself, what fate is worse than being forgotten by the one you sought to destroy? That is the cruelty of true power. Your silence is their humiliation. Your composure is their defeat. Your withdrawal is their erasure. But there is a third layer, and it is the sharpest of all. You do not merely silence them. You live in such a way that every breath you take, every success you earn, every step you climb contradicts their narrative. They call you weak. You demonstrate resilience. They call you arrogant. You embody humility. They call you manipulative. You radiate transparency, not because you need to prove them wrong, but because you do not even acknowledge them as the authority to be proven against. Your life becomes the evidence. Your success becomes the verdict. Your consistency becomes the noose around their throat. This is where Machiavelli's brilliance sharpens. You don't argue, you don't counter, you don't even notice. You simply live in such contrast to their lies that their words rot on their own. And the longer this continues, the clearer the contrast becomes. People see you not through the filter of their accusations but through the truth of your presence. And truth, repeated through action, always eclipses rumor. Every insult, every whisper, every scheme designed to drag you into battle. It dies the moment you refuse to engage. It withers the moment you remain still. And it collapses entirely when you rise higher, untouched, while they gnaw at shadows. Stillness, withdrawal, contrast, the three knives of Machiavellian destruction. And in the silence of your composure, your enemy is already cutting themselves open. But there is another truth you must face. Silence is not always enough. Stillness may protect you. Withdrawal may erase them. Contrast may humiliate them, but sometimes the enemy does not stop. Sometimes they are relentless. They return again and again, fueled not by logic but by obsession. And obsession does not die with silence. It festers. It grows. And when you face such an enemy, you must turn to the final law of Machiavellian destruction, redirection. Do not fight them. Do not feed them. Simply guide their chaos elsewhere. Let them wage war, but not against you. Against themselves, against each other, against phantoms they cannot conquer. The beauty of Machiavellian strategy lies in this. You never dirty your own hands when others are so eager to stain theirs for you. Imagine it. A rival spreads lies about you, desperate to tarnish your reputation. You could confront them. You could correct them. But confrontation would bind you to their story. Correction would dignify their lie. Instead, you plant seeds. Subtle, invisible seeds that turn their own allies suspicious of them. You hint. You withdraw. You let their paranoia bloom. And soon they are not fighting you anymore. They are fighting shadows in their own circle. You stand aside, untouched, while they cannibalize their credibility. Ask yourself, what is more devastating than watching an enemy destroy themselves with weapons they sharpened for you? That is the genius of redirection. You do not extinguish their fire. You let it burn, but you make sure it burns their house, not yours. This is the Machiavellian paradox. The less you react, the more they unravel. But the more you subtly guide, the faster they collapse. You never need to strike openly. You never need to declare war. Your enemy digs, you hand them a sharper shovel. Your enemy screams, you give them a louder stage. Your enemy poisons, you let them drink first, and when the crowd looks, they no longer see a victim and a villain. They see a fool and a shadow. The fool, your enemy, the shadow, the one they can never touch. You understand this clearly. Power is not measured in how many enemies you defeat. Power is measured in how many enemies destroy themselves chasing you. Every great figure in history who truly endured understood this. Julius Caesar, Napoleon, even the cold strategists of modern empires. They rarely wasted energy fighting every insult, every rumor, every slight. They let their enemies exhaust themselves, while they focused only on the moves that mattered. The field was littered with rivals clawing for their downfall, but history remembers only one name: theirs. Ask yourself, will you spend your life answering to every shadow? Or will you force shadows to answer to you? And yet, there is a deeper level, a darker one. Because the truth is this: not all enemies destroy themselves. Some survive long enough to remain dangerous. Some persist. Some endure. And when they do, you must be willing to embrace what most cannot: the cruelty of finality. Mercy is often praised as virtue, but in Machiavellian reality, mercy is risk. Mercy is an open door. Mercy is a favor that tomorrow becomes betrayal. Fairness is a leash. Mercy is a trap. Hesitation is suicide. When the time comes that silence, withdrawal, contrast, and redirection fail, you do not strike half-heartedly. You end it completely. One clean blow, no return. Not literal death. No. A destruction more profound. Social death. Political death. Reputational death. The death of their influence, their credibility, their reach. You erase their ability to stand again. You do not maim the snake. You cut off its head. And here is where most falter. They think cruelty will stain them. They fear backlash. They fear judgment. But judgment is temporary. Survival is eternal. Ask yourself, what weighs heavier? The brief whisper of criticism, or the permanent silence of an enemy who can no longer rise? History favors the survivors, not the martyrs. The Machiavellian mind does not lust for cruelty, but it accepts it when necessity calls. Because necessity is the only true morality. Think of it this way. When you swat a mosquito, do you fear what the other mosquitoes will think? No. You remove the irritation and return to your peace. When you crush a parasite, do you worry about its family? No. You reclaim your health and keep moving. Why then, when it comes to human parasites, do you hesitate? Why do you pause, worry, second guess? That hesitation is exactly what your enemy counts on. And that hesitation is what Machiavelli warned against. If you must destroy, destroy completely. Half measures only give birth to resentment, and resentment always grows teeth. But do not mistake this ruthlessness for recklessness. Destruction must never be impulsive. It must never be emotional. Anger clouds judgment, and rage makes you sloppy. You do not lash out. You calculate. You prepare. You move in silence until the moment arrives, and when it does, you strike with precision. A single move that ends the game. The most terrifying power is not loud cruelty. It is quiet inevitability. To your enemy, it will feel as though the world itself has turned against them. But in truth, it was only your hand, invisible, patient, deliberate. And when it is over, you walk away untouched. You do not gloat. You do not boast. You do not even acknowledge them. Their end speaks louder than any victory cry. This is the Machiavellian truth. Destruction is not violence. Destruction is clarity. It is cutting away what threatens your survival. It is pruning the rot so the tree may thrive. It is removing the distraction so your focus sharpens. You do not destroy because you are cruel. You destroy because you are clear-eyed, because you see reality for what it is, a battlefield where hesitation kills, where weakness is preyed upon, where mercy is repaid with betrayal. And in that battlefield, survival belongs not to the loudest, not to the angriest, but to the coldest, to the one who waits, to the one who withholds, to the one who cuts once but cuts so deeply that nothing rises again. Ask yourself now, who in your life drains your energy? Who poisons your peace? Who clings to you, not to lift you, but to feed from you? And ask yourself the harder question, why do you still allow them breath in your kingdom? Because of loyalty, because of habit, because of mercy? Understand, loyalty is sacred only when it is mutual. Habit is chains disguised as comfort, and mercy, to the wrong person, is not kindness. It is an invitation for future harm. Every tyrant, every traitor, every parasite who has ever returned to wound you was once spared by your hesitation. Do not make the same mistake twice. But remember this too. Destruction is not always external. Sometimes the greatest enemy is within. Your doubt, your fear, your softness. These are assassins sharper than any blade. And if you do not destroy them, they will destroy you. Machiavelli was clear on this. The prince who cannot master himself cannot master anything else. So you must turn the knife inward first. Cut away your weakness. Cut away your self-deception. Cut away your illusions of fairness, of comfort, of mercy where none is deserved, until you stand clear, until you stand sharpened, until you are the weapon, because only then can you wield silence, withdrawal, contrast, and destruction with true precision. The world is not kind. The world is not fair. The world is a stage where predators wear masks of civility, where manipulators sing songs of virtue, where enemies smile as they sharpen their knives. You can pretend otherwise, you can cling to illusions, but illusions will not protect you when the blade is at your throat. What will protect you is clarity. What will protect you is calculation. What will protect you is the courage to destroy what must be destroyed, without hesitation, without apology, without the poison of guilt. Because survival is not granted, survival is taken. And when you live by these laws, when you embrace stillness, when you weaponize withdrawal, when you master contrast, when you guide with redirection, and when you end with finality, you rise into a realm beyond their reach. You no longer play their game. You no longer answer to their provocations. You become untouchable, inevitable, unforgettable. And they become what they always were, noise fading into silence, shadows dissolving in the light of your clarity, footnotes in the book of your survival. So ask yourself one last time, who benefits from your hesitation? Who profits from your softness? Who grows stronger each time you show mercy where none is deserved? And now ask yourself the question that cuts deeper than all others. Will you rise ruthless, or will you remain prey? Because in the end, destruction is not cruelty. Destruction is survival, and survival is power. Stay, because the next lesson will cut deeper than this one.